Phoenix Suns, season preview, new coach, old players. Let's break it down. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be breaking down Whitney, Mum Talk legend, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Strap in. It's going to be a banger. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, through September the 22nd, only a couple of days left, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just go to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms, so hit the thumb up and the double bang and leave your comments and all that stuff. Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl we'll talk about in a second. But first, let's get to the important stuff. Whitney, what's wrong with this lady? The most infuriating person of all time. No, strap. I'm not going to talk about it, but my partner's been watching that show. What is going on that show? Anyway, craziness. Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. It is. We're here. It's rolling. Get your applications in because the numbers have absolutely skyrocketed. I have expanded the Roto. We had initially had 120 slots for Roto. That is filled. I've pushed it to 180 now. So be on the lookout for more Roto invites. If you are on Basketball Monster, click the Roto link in the forum to get into that Roto league as well. You get the priority before I send out more of those invites. One of the head-to-head category leagues has had everyone pay up and is in, so their draft order is set and ready to go. And once everyone else does for the other divisions, then we will start to get those rolled out as well. So just be on the lookout over the next week for more invites to roll out. It just takes a lot of time to get there. If you don't know what Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl is, the entry form is linked in the description below. The rules are linked. These are category leagues. There are points leagues. There are Roto leagues. We have 12-team leagues with individual prizes, plus big grand prizes through the Battle Royale as well. I'm sure you know what it is, but if you're just looking for a league that is super competitive, that has money on the line, that a lot of people are a part of, well, you can get into this one. Let's talk Phoenix Suns now, though. A team that the major pieces and parts of the team are all sort of the same. There is one major addition, even though he's not that good of a player. There is a major addition in Tyus Jones. And then there's a brand new head coach, which could change, honestly, literally everything about the team. So as much as we think we know about this team, maybe we don't. And let's try and figure out what we do and don't know and what could and couldn't be happening with this squad. We'll start by just taking a look at what I expect their starting five to be. Out of all of the teams that I've done so far, there is almost no, it's not what I would do, but there's almost no way this is not what the starting five is going to be. It does appear that Tyus Jones will be the starting point guard. Whether he is the closing point guard or not, I don't know. Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, write those in the most permanent ink you can find. And then Jusuf Nurkic at center. I really don't think there's anything changing with that group. Like I would personally probably just throw the same starting lineup they had last year with Grayson Allen out there instead of Tyus Jones. But that's not what they're going to do, so we just have to work with that. Always remember, starting, it's great, it's solid. Doesn't mean you play 30 minutes, doesn't mean you play 32 minutes. You might play 26, you might play 21, you might play 29, you might play 35. So even though Tyus is starting, doesn't mean that it's the best thing for him. Doesn't mean that it's the best thing for the team, and doesn't mean that it kills everybody else. And we're going to go through those things individually as we go through it. But that is what I expect the Phoenix Suns starting group to be. Jones, Booker, Beal, Durant, and the big fella, Jusuf Nurkic, as their starting group coming up. Let's go and take a look now at some guys that I think are currently being undervalued fantasy-wise. There are two major names who I think are being a little bit underdrafted, and they're guys with genuine concerns, and that's why they're getting underdrafted, and that is Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic. Bealo has an ADP on ESPN at 98. 98. And for category leagues, that's immense value For ESPN points leagues, his ADP is obviously the same. It's 98. That is immense value. His ESPN points league rank is 81. I think that is immense value as well. A lot of criticism about Beal last season. He had the back issue to begin the year, came back and hurt his ankle like after one game. But actually, down the stretch, he was pretty healthy. And he was actually pretty good. He was a top 50 player, I think, final 3 months of last season. People treat Beal like he's useless. And he's not worth the contract. That's fine. But he adjusted his game a lot. He still probably needs to adjust more. He does need to take more threes because he hit them at an insane level. He dropped his usage down to 23%. He played 33 minutes. He's 31 now. He averaged 18, 4, and 5 with a steal. Shot 51 from the field and 81 from the line. And in the past, Beal has had better free throw shooting seasons than that. So I'm not sure if that goes up or not. It doesn't really matter. The field goals, maybe his three-point percentage does drop. Maybe his volume goes up. Instead of 1.9 a game, he goes to 2.6. Does that change his scoring from 18.2 to 19? Maybe. But he was actually really good down the stretch. And because I think of the frustration that people had with Beal early on in the season, that they just ignored it or don't want to believe it or don't want to reinvest in what Beal's doing this year. Like, I think there's an outside, and I need to be really careful with my words because I can say many different things on many different shows, and I do put out a lot of stuff, and people will always misinterpret something. Like I said the other day on the Raptors one that maybe RJ Barrett, outside could be a top 50 points league guy. Man, you think RJ Barrett's top 50? No, I don't. I said there's an outside shot in a points league. He might be a top 50 player. Maybe he gets it. I'm not sure. I saw like some people misinterpreting my comments about second-year guards, saying just go in and blindly target second-year guards. Not what I said. I spend hours and hours and hours in breaking down every player individually and their values. And what I said was that people discard the idea of second-year guards getting better. They think that what they did as rookies is just what they're going to do moving forward. And that leads to a lot of those players ending up being undervalued. So I'll say this again really cautiously with Beal. He could be a top 50 player. Do not, for the love of God, draft Bradley Beal in the top 50. Do not say that I am telling you that Bradley Beal is going to be a top 50 player, because I am not. He might be. I would not rule that out. We literally saw it for 3 months last season when the team was healthy. But that is not my expectation. But you can get Beal like ADP 83 on Yahoo. Cool. Fantrax 74. That's pretty reasonable. But ESPN has got him too low. And I feel okay about saying that. What about the other big fella here? Another guy that's had plenty of false starts in terms of his fantasy value over the years. Plenty of situations where you thought, what's the right time for Jusuf Nurkic? And it never happens. So much so that we created a bloody sound drop to say that we're ready to get hurt again. Nurkic, again, one of the guys that's really easy to criticize. And there will be people who do a lot of work in basketball who say, well, man, maybe they've got a better player in Mason Plumlee. I 100% disagree with that. And while Nurkic has his faults, I wouldn't say that Nurkic was bad last season. He was actually third on the team in EPM. He was 95th percentile on defensive EPM. His finishing numbers for a center are horrendous, and they always have been. But defensively, he was good. He moves the ball. He is, I think, a pretty solid player. Last season, well, let's talk about the numbers. His ADP on ESPN, Nurkic, is 106. I think he's way better than that. His Fantrax ADP is 90. I actually think he's better than that as well. His points league value on ESPN sits at an ADP of 106. Now, there is risk with Nurkic. He's had injury problems for sure over periods of time. There is a risk of a new coach coming in, but as we'll bring up his numbers from last season, we're not in that situation where, and we're going to talk more about the impact of Budenholzer for a couple other players later, but Nurkic only played 27 minutes a night and 19 usage. He was 30 years of age, averaged 11 and 11. He had 4 assists with over a steal and over a block and shot 51 from the field. You want that 51 to be 54, but I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. And free throws for him vary quite a bit. The optimistic glass half full look at Nurkic is that Mike Budenholzer comes in and sees what Nurkic can do and uses him in a Brook Lopez way. Take a few more threes. Play more drop, block more shots. Possible. That would be Again, I'll be very cautious. That would be absolutely a best case upside outcome of Nurkic pushing back close to the top 50. It's unlikely. But I don't think there is really, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think there is much risk of Nurkic losing his starting position. Now, they've got options. They can go small at times with Durant at center and O'Neal playing at the 4. I just think the gulf between Plumlee and Nurkic, while it's smaller than the difference between Nurkic and Eubanks, I don't think the gap between Nurkic and Plumlee is that small, to be honest. I think that Nurkic is very much better, and I like getting him late. I have lost faith that Nurkic is ever going to be a reliable volume 3-point shooter or even a good finisher at the rim. And maybe with the addition of Tyus Jones, that does hurt Nurkic from getting those 4 assists per game that he got last season, which did really help his value. But I also think that there is some value in Budenholzer coaching, opening up some of the offensive stuff. Maybe that does help some of his efficiency issues. And I think his defensive importance and maybe that slight change in scheme, which could happen, the more drop stuff, maybe there is an improvement there for Nurk. But I am very much in on him towards later rounds. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, through to September the 22nd, you do not have long to get onto that. We've got a great offer for you because we've talked about FanDuel for a long time. They've been a great supporter of the show. They're America's #1 sportsbook. I'm sure you've heard me say that before, but now it's something different. Every FanDuel customer, old or new, place a $5 bet between now and September 22nd, and you get a 3-week free trial for NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That means you get to watch every out-of-market Sunday afternoon NFL game, and all you need is a YouTube TV base plan. So you've got your Google account, you got your valid form of payment linked in there as well, and of course you can go and cancel that at any point if that's what you so choose to do. But now you can watch whatever game you want to watch. Do you want to watch the resurgence of Andy Dalton in Carolina? Probably not, but you could. It's there. You want to watch Skylar Thompson and the mighty Miami Dolphins plunge to depths that we haven't seen for a while? Maybe. It's all available on YouTube TV. Thanks, on NFL Sunday Ticket, thanks to YouTube TV and FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. So we've looked at the guys who may be undervalued. I think there is something there with Beal and something there with Nurkic with the spots we can get them. Let's talk about the other side. And unfortunately for this team, not why, I sort of know, but there seems to be some public buzz around a lot of these players, not necessarily factoring in some of the things that happen. And what I've noticed recently a lot, and excuse me if I just go off topic slightly, is that there seems to be more of this idea. Whether that's, I don't think, it's a little bit from fantasy analysts, but not really, but just general public, general people talking, people drafting, is they just go, well, this happened last year, so therefore that's what happens. And that's obviously, like on the surface, when I break it down that way, that is foolish. This happened, therefore that is what happens. That is not true for many reasons. We bang on about year-to-year variance in stats all the time and how things change. That's not factoring in personnel changes. It's not factoring in progression through age or decline through age. Coaches, schemes, rotations. It's not factoring any of those things in. Again, I'll harken back to talking about me and the second-year guards, and people go, well, you can't draft these guys. Look, they're just bad in every category. Well, the correct way to phrase that is they were bad last year. They did have bad field goal percentage. Scoot and Keontae I'm talking about specifically. They did have bad field goal percentage. Does that mean that they will forever be bad steals players or bad field goal guys at 39%? No. And that's the same with some of these players here, is that we can look at what Bradley Beal, let's not talk Beal, but that's part of it, but we can talk about what Kevin Durant did last season. We can talk about what Devin Booker did last season. And we can look at that and go, well, that'll just happen again, won't it? Everything will be the same without any context put behind it. And the number one context thing I think we need to talk about here is that Mike Budenholzer teams limit the minutes of the best players. Why he does that? Well, Budenholzer believes that his regular season system and the way that he gets his players to work gets wins. And you know what? He's 100% right, and there is zero argument about that. So he doesn't want to play his best players 37 minutes a night, put increased load on these guys, and have them break down in the playoffs. he would keep Giannis, like 26-year-old prime Giannis at 33 minutes and Middleton at 32 minutes. And it's not even like where those guys are now in terms of their health journey. So there's worry about what Budenholzer does with his team. Now, you could say their bench is not that strong, but it'll have Grayson Allen, it'll have Royce O'Neal, it'll have Mason Plumlee. It might chuck some Ryan Dunn or Oso Iguodala in there. There might be Damian Lee. The bench is not that bad compared to where it's been in the past. So Devin Booker is ranked at 15 on Yahoo. ESPN's got him 16th for categories, and his Yahoo points value is also like ranked 15 because that's how Yahoo does it. I'm not sold on Booker there. I think that might be slightly overvalued. Now, Booker was really good last season. Obviously, he was great for what he was doing. He's 28. He's right in his prime. He played 36 minutes with 30 usage. There was a small hit with Durant and Beal there. 27 points, only 2.2 threes. He needs to take more. 4.5 boards, 7 assists, low steals and blocks, of course. 49 and 87 is his percentages. But if Tyus Jones is in fact the point guard, Booker will probably not get 6.9 assists. Remember that half of the season, Bradley Beal was out, especially the early half of the season. So will Booker maintain 30 usage? I'm not sure. Maybe that goes to 29. I don't know. And the other thing is that will he play 36 minutes a night or does he play 34? 34 is still good. 33 is still solid. It's not 36. And if your ADP is 15, that means that there are some people going 13. Some people maybe going 12. Some going 18, 19. I don't know. But I think that, again, it's not a giant difference, but I think Booker more pushes back end of the second round versus the top end of the second round. I think that's, there's a risk of just going a little high on him. And especially when we talk points leagues, I think that Devin Booker points league is back end second round. He is not as good of a points league guy as he is a category league player. So I think there is some risk with him. I know there is some risk with Kevin Durant. And we're going to go under the lens on Kevin Durant a little bit later because I have been, I don't know what the right term is. It's not really aggressive, but I haven't planted my flag. I've just put my ideas out around Durant for this season, but I think we are going too far on this. Like he's too high. Durant's category league value, his ADP is 13 on Yahoo and he's ranked at 10th. His Fantrax ADP is 14. For points leagues on Yahoo, he's obviously got a rank of 10 and an ADP of 13 as well. And I just don't know. Well, I do know. I don't have Durant as a top 30 player for points leagues, for Yahoo points leagues, or for ESPN points leagues, to be honest. There are numerous, and again, we're going to deal with it. We're going to dig into it a little bit more in the Under the Lens segment. But Durant, there's no denying that he was really good, but he played 37 minutes a night. He played 75 games, and while I am not telling you not to draft Durant because of health, part of my thing always about health has been, do not draft someone because they played games the year before. Don't use that as your reason. I'm not saying that Durant will definitely get injured, but he's 36 and the odds as you get older get higher. But don't look at that and go, well, he was healthy. Look how much he did last season. That means nothing. It doesn't mean anything in regards to what Durant will do this year. And maybe I am wrong. And everything that Budenholzer has done in the past will be thrown out the window. But I find it very difficult to believe that Durant is going to play 37 regular season minutes a night. He averaged 27, 6.5, and 5. The assists, the second half of the season last year, they already dropped. Once Bradley Beal rejoined the lineup, Durant was under 4 a game. And now there's Tyus Jones as well. 0.9 steals. He's always been a low steals guy. The blocks are nice. The 52% from the field is not peak Durant. 86 from the line is not peak Durant. Can he get back to 90? Sure. But as we're going to talk about later, his free throw attempts disappeared. They cut in half the second half of the season. And is that because he was fatigued and couldn't attack the rim as much? Possibly. And maybe that goes up if he plays fewer minutes. But I would suggest that like Booker 37, Durant, or 36 minutes, Durant 37. If they both go to 33, like reasonable, possible, tie in with the decline of Durant's free throw attempts second half of the season. Attempts, not free throw percentage. That I think can go back up. Attempts. and a likely drop in assists. That's why I just don't want to touch Durant at 10. He's old. He has a lower body injury history, a significant one. And I'm not going to use what he did last season in terms of minutes and games played as my baseline for what he's doing this season. I think that is an incorrect way of approaching that. I think Tyus Jones is also perhaps ranked a little bit too highly. We are going quite long on these because I think there's quite a bit to talk about here. Jones's ADP is 112. That suggests that you'd want him as a starter in a category league. I wouldn't. He's ranked at 96 on Yahoo. That suggests that you'd want him in one of your best 8 players. And there's no way in the world that I would want that. Absolutely none. His category league rank on ESPN is 104. No. His points league value on Yahoo, he's ranked like still 96 and 112. Under zero circumstance would I be considering Tyus Jones in that area. So, yeah, like Tyus Jones might start. That's possible. Last season, Jones played 29 minutes on the putrid Wizards team with a 16% usage. Chances that goes up with Durant, Beal, and Booker? Absolutely zero. He's 28. He averaged 12 points with 7 assists. 7 assists is very good. But only 1.6 threes in 80 from the line and 49 from the field. And yeah, look, he's an assist-to-turnover king. That's great. We love that. Great for him. Unbelievable. The Suns had a problem with turnovers in the fourth quarter. We know this. Assist-to-turnover is not the measure of a great point guard. I just don't believe that it is. In fact, usually that suggests that the point guard isn't taking many risks and it's just a lot of safe stuff which doesn't lead to great offense. So Jones is 29 minutes a night. I'm not sure he gets it this season. They're going to be benching and playing 22 minutes of a 46% three-point shooter, which is what Allen was last season. Don't think he is this season. That means they're just not going to play any Royce O'Neal either. They've also got a Monte Morris, who's way worse than Tyus Jones, but he's another option they've got there too. And are they really just going to take the ball out of the hands of Beal, Booker, and Durant so that Jones can assist the turnover his way to what? I like Tyus Jones. He's a really strong backup point guard, but I do not think that he plugs in as a starter. And as a starter, 32 minutes, that guy. And getting assists is useful in a category league. It is hard to do. And there's real value in doing that. But I just think we might be going a little bit too... In points leagues, like zero. Absolutely no way we're looking at Tyus Jones in points leagues. None. The other one there is one that I do have to mention because it currently exists and it sits there with alleged, the value there on him. But Grayson Allen's category rank on ESPN is 51. And that would be bonkers if Tyus Jones didn't join this team and Allen was going to start. That would be like insanity to take Grayson Allen at the end of the start of the 5th round on ESPN. 6th round, end of the 5th. Insane. Crazy. And of course, they haven't updated it since Jesus' birth, I believe, is the last time we saw an update on those category ranks. But they recently updated their points league ranks ESPN and Grayson Allen's at 108. I'm almost certain he didn't finish 108th last season in ESPN points. Now, maybe I should go and fact check myself on that, and I will. I'll go and check it. But we are not doing that. Allen was a real surprise and a huge, huge guy to grab off the waiver wire last season. He hit 2.7 threes a game with 13 points. Mind you, 13 points is 5 below average in a standard fantasy league. He played 34 minutes. He shot 46 from 3. 88 from the line is great. Steals and blocks are low. Assists are okay. Rebounds are not great. He was fine. But I don't see how or why that would be continuing this season. Because if Tyus Jones starts, somebody's going to come off the bench, and that somebody is going to be Grayson Allen. And that means he's not playing 34 minutes a night. And that means that 51 ranking remains absolutely asinine, as does the 106 ranking on ESPN. As I just quickly talk about ESPN's points league scoring. You know what? I was wrong. Grayson Allen did actually finish 106th in ESPN points per game. So there you go. He was around that mark. Now, that suggests that he's going to do exactly the same thing this season, which I find not true. Okay, so they're the undervalued guys. Let's take a look at some breakout potential players. I don't really think there's anything going on here on this team in terms of breakouts, but I've got one guy I'm just going to throw out there just honestly to get you guys excited and then let you back down, because I'm going to put Bol Bol on the breakout list, mainly to give me an opportunity to talk about Bol Bol, who he's on this team, there's always something that someone talks up at some point in the season about Bol, and then nothing eventuates. Remember last year when he signed a minimum contract and they put him as part of the Big Five in those graphics? Like, insane stuff. 7'3", 25 years of age. He played 11 minutes a night. He averaged 5 points and 3 rebounds. He blocked 0.6 shots in 11 minutes, which was pretty good. He shot 62 from the field, which is very good. But he's not playing over Durant or O'Neal or Nurkic or Plumlee or Allen or Beal or Booker or Jones. He's just not. So I'll get it out there now. You'll hear somebody somewhere suggest, but what about Bol? Maybe Bol can jump in here. And maybe he does do better than 11 minutes a night. Maybe. But we please do not need to pay any attention. That was terrible English. Please don't pay attention to Bol in fantasy drafts. There's a weird level of obsession with Bol, and I don't fully get it, and I don't want to sound like I just hate what Bol does. He's changed his game enough to be a solid enough rotation guy who literally might not even be an every night rotation player on this team. But there's just a level of insanity that does travel around him for whatever reason. I know the reason, but I don't need to get into that. That we just don't need to mess with. Risks in the rotation. What are the pressure points? And there are pressure points on this team because it's a new coach. So what about the Budenholzer system? What is the Budenholzer system? Well, it's one that gets really great success in the regular season. It's keeping players fresh. It's keeping the minutes down. It's the defensive system. It's drop coverage. It's let them have some three-pointers. Stop them getting to the rim. Playoff variance. That's a Budenholzer system. Will he want a Tyus Jones playing full minutes? Or will having that shooting of Grayson Allen around Beal, Booker, and Nurkic? Because let's be fair, what does Jones bring if he's playing off ball? The answer is nothing. And what do you want him to do to bring the ball up and just throw it to somebody at half court? Don't know. I don't see the full minute path for Jones. There is talk from some people that they'll just bench Bradley Beal because he's trash and look at his contract, he's so bad. He's better than Tyus Jones and he's better than Grayson Allen and he's better than anyone else that they could put in that slot. And yes, he's getting paid a lot of money, but there is almost no chance that Bradley Beal, who was actually again pretty good down the stretch last season, there's no way he is coming off the bench. So I put that there just to again nix that idea. That is just not going to happen. And if it does, I'll happily eat my words and apologize. But it's just not going to happen. I don't think. The other change is not really a rotation risk, but it's a projection risk, is what about the shot mix? What if Budenholzer comes to these guys and goes, KD, right, come on, what are we doing? Booker, what are we doing? Beal, what are we doing? You guys are good shooters. How about you take threes? Any shot at doing that? Because you guys lost in the first round again last season. You've had disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. Maybe we'll just listen to what I've got to say here. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Do they buy into it? Or do they cry about it and want to take contested mid-ranges? That's possible as well. But Budenholzer's teams spread. They play drop on defense. They take threes. And taking threes drops field goal percentage, but it increases scoring and overall three-pointers made. And we'll see what they do. But it is a risk. Budenholzer will change the minutes. He will change the defense. He will change the offense. How that ends up playing out is still the question mark. Let's take Kevin Durant under the lens. I know we've spoken a bit about Durant already. And I acknowledge that it is controversial, my take, that I don't want to take Kevin Durant in round one. In fact, I think there's a distinct chance that he falls off. And part of what I was saying a lot at the start of the show, which I didn't really get out, is that people just go, well, he's Kevin Durant, he's done this. That's cool. But at some point he won't. Chris Paul was a top 5 player for 15 years, and you know what he is now? Not. LeBron James was a number 1, number 2 player, and you know what he is now? Awesome, but not that. People drop off. And I am not suggesting that Durant is bad. He was still good in the Olympics. He's still going to shoot very well. But there were indicators. Look at on this crafted list here for Durant. Look at that three-point attempt rate. That is a putrid number. He doesn't take any threes. Look at his creation to turnover percentage. He turns the ball over a lot. And even last season, when Beal and Booker arrived, Durant's assist rate dropped, but his turnover rate really didn't. That's not ideal. Now, he's still awesome, obviously. His creation's there. His passing is pretty solid, but that's probably going to drop off. He protects the rim decently well. He's a good shot blocker. He doesn't do it a huge amount in the middle of the pack there. But steals, deflections, he never does. He never creates those turnovers to that level. He's an awesome player very, very clearly. The other graph, the radar chart on the right-hand side, shows the type of plays. Spot-ups, ISOs, and pick and roll ball handling are the top 3 options there, about equal percentage. And this, again, ties back to the Tyus Jones thing. Will Durant continue to run as a pick and roll ball handler? Why can't I say that word? Pick and roll ball handler as much? Because if he does, that means Tyus isn't handling it as much, and then he's useless out there. Or they pull that back off Durant. There are 2 ways that can go. So it is an adjustment. And look, Durant is awesome. Durant has been great. Durant is 36 and played 37 minutes a night, and I just don't believe there is going to be the same level of production given where the indicators went. Look at this graph on the right for Darko, which shows his free throw attempt rate. Now, what Darko is Darko has numbers that project forward. So sometimes you'll see something that looks, why is that going up when he actually shot worse at the end of the season? Because Darko's a forward projection thing. But look at the way that those free throw attempt rate numbers absolutely plummeted last season. There are a couple of reasons for that, I think. A, the way the NBA called free throws. They just stopped calling fouls. And I believe that will continue to a similar degree this season. Durant is also like a guy that gets great fantasy category value through elite field goals and elite free throws. And you can see the discrepancy because Durant has never been that number 1, number 2 points league player. He's actually been outside the first round in points leagues a few times because a lot of his value is volume through percentages. I think we agree on that. But if you lose the volume on one of them, which literally is what happened second half of the season, and then you continue to lose that volume, and then secondarily, if you do start taking more threes, that drops your field goal percentage. Well, his category value actually falls a bit as well. And I am working, like the way that I'm working and trying to evaluate players from a category perspective is that there is a lot of game by game and week by week percentage variance. So I'm sort of downweighting the impact of those. The headshot plot here shows the last 2 seasons for a bunch of players. It's Booker, Beal, it's Durant, and it's Tyus Jones. The x-axis is the percentage of fouls drawn on drives. The y-axis is the initiator rate. So, in the top right, Devin Booker 2024. Really high initiator rate, the highest out of anybody here. Obviously, he played more point guard. Devin Booker 2023, the initiator rate drops a lot. Because that's, this is, again, we're putting Durant on the lens, but this also ties into Booker. Is that, that's a big drop-off in his initiator stuff because he just won't be playing as much point guard. He also, Booker was drawing some more fouls in 23 versus 24, but it's not a big difference. The bottom right corner is Kevin Durant. Now, his initiator rate is really quite low from last season. Right? He's really quite low. But you see the gap between that drop-off of his percentage of fouls drawn on drives. It's a sizable fall-off. Now, again, we can make the argument if they cut his minutes down and he's not as worried about injuries, that maybe he drives a little bit more and he gets more fouls. But again, he is old. He has to preserve his health. So I'm not sure it comes back. Tyus Jones, top left, doesn't draw fouls on drives, but really high initiator rate. So that can't exist that both Booker and Jones sit at that same spot. So someone's hurting somewhere. And Jones is in the middle there. Well, Beal just sort of sits in the middle. We saw Bradley Beal see his free throw attempts drop last season, but his initiator rate rose, and that'll probably fall back as well. So just, again, showing the difference between the 2 seasons and where things are probably going to have to give in terms of who has the ball in their hands, and then we work out the Durant free throw attempts, which were somewhat concerning. Now, in terms of the fantasy shape of players, Durant is on this graph. Some of the names are a little surprising. Like Kyle Kuzma is a surprising name. But the rebounds for him and the assist numbers are similar. Low steals, the same as Durant. Now, Durant gets way more blocks than Kuzma. Durant is awesome, so there's not going to be a player that's the same as him. And Kuzma is obviously not great at his percentages, the same way that Durant is, but the shape is similar enough. The other names there are Towns, interesting, Tatum, and Paolo Banchero. They're definitely not perfect comparisons. But a lot of the guys like that are just like great scoring, good rebounds, pretty good assists, low steals. Durant's percentage is better than numerous ones of those, but Towns is about the same with. Tatum is about the same with. Banchero and Kuzma a little bit different. But I don't know. I'm not saying that Durant, again, is bad or is not going to be elite or is dropped off or anything like that. I just think there were a few little red flaggy warning signs that putting the faith into Durant at age 36 to continue doing what he did, just saying, well, he's Durant, he would just do that. I'm not going to do that. And that's why I've got him down lower. Let's look at some injury updates or some concerns that we have to pay attention to injury-wise across this team. There are a few names here, and this is where, again, that confusion can reign in these projections. It would be very easy, like I'll continue to go on this because I think projection, the way that I do them and the way that I talk about ranks and the way that I talk about fantasy, there needs to be a transparency in what I do. Like I don't just sit in there and go, well, this happened last season, so therefore, bang, that's what happens. It's useless. For me and my job, that is useless for me to just come and tell you this happened, therefore it will happen the same. You look at Durant's full numbers or Booker's, this will be the same. You've got to make the adjustments. Now, in looking at all this, Durant was healthy last season, but he's had numerous lower body injuries. Torn Achilles, yes. Broken foot, yes. Sprained MCL twice, yes. Ankle sprains, yes. And most of that stuff is fluky. Someone falling on his knees, correct. I'm not ruling out drafting Durant because I think he's going to get hurt. But I'm definitely not looking at Durant and saying, I will draft him because he didn't get hurt last season. That is foolish. There are concerns. Devin Booker, hamstring issues, groin issues, a lot of soft tissue stuff. A bit of a worry. A bit of a worry. We'll hope that the minutes reduction, if it comes, and I think it will help that, but I don't know that it will. It might not. Bradley Beal, numerous back issues and hamstring chain issues last season, leading back to the year before in Washington. In the past, Beal was incredibly healthy. And then he suffered stress reactions at his foot and got injured. Then he came back and he was incredibly healthy again. Then he had a wrist injury and now a back injury. I don't really care about the wrist thing. I think the leg stuff is fine and healed, but you worry a little bit about the back leading to the hamstring. And that ankle injury he suffered last season got nothing to do with any of this. But there are some worries. Nurkic, some injury history for him, some knee problems, but more importantly, that broken leg and lower body stuff. There's risk. And the other one is Damian Lee, of course, which is a real one because Damian Lee didn't play at all last season. We didn't get to see any of Damo out there. He was suffered a torn meniscus. He had the full meniscus repair surgery, and he possibly could have returned had they made it through the playoffs or past the first round, but they didn't. Lee was a 40+% three-point shooter. The year before, they sort of replaced his role with Grayson Allen. I'm not sure that he's going to be in the rotation this year, but he might. But that also might be an impact on what Grayson Allen does, just having a healthy Damian Lee back. Let's take a look. What are we looking at now? At the schedule for the Suns. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it matter? Most of the time, the answer is no, it doesn't matter. But let's take a squiz because they have a very, very low amount of quality games. 44 only. Contrast with the Bucks, we're 59. 44. Meaning that when you are looking at a Nurkic or a Beal or a Booker or a Durant or whatever, is that compared to other teams in the league, they play on the lower volume days much, much less. Meaning they are going to be pushed more into those situations where there are squeeze, sit, start decision days. So bear that in mind. They have the most back-to-backs in the NBA at 16. And I don't expect that as a routine thing that Durant is going to sit back-to-backs or Beal or Booker. I don't think that'll be the case. Part of the issue you have with back-to-backs is if somebody gets hurt, as part of their return and recovery and rehab, is they're likely to sit back-to-backs for a period of time. And if you've got the most back-to-backs in the league, then you're at more risk of sitting those games. They've got 14 max game weeks, which is in the middle pack. And their playoff schedule is similar to the Portland one, just a little bit reversed. It's just alternating. If you finish March 23rd, which is the final date for Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl Battle Royales, and the date that I suggest everything to finish, they go 3-4-3. Not fantastic, 10 games. If you finish March 30th, it's 4-3-4. If you go Yahoo default, it's the 3-4-3. And if you go ESPN default, it is 3-4-3-4 for their playoff scheduling. Let's take a look at some of the young guys on this team. There aren't very many, and I won't say that I am particularly inspired. There is one thing that is... There are a few things that are really consistent year on year when looking at projections and rosters. Is that one of the more common things is that Memphis will usually go into a season with 18 guaranteed contracts. And you go, well, who are they going to cut? That is one thing that nearly always happens. One of the other things that comes in is you come in and Cleveland will let their restricted free agency situation play out and they won't fill their roster very quickly. And the other one is Phoenix just has nobody on their roster. They will often come in and we'll be sitting here now and they'll have, and they've improved a bit, they would have like 14 guys and one two-way. You're like, bro, you can have 20 players and 3 two-ways. Why have you got no one in? They just don't do it. Now this year, again, they don't have a huge amount of young guys. They're not really trying stuff out, but they do have a couple of two-way players on the team. But they just don't, and they will at some point, but they just do not announce anything or bring anybody in on tryouts or anything like that early on. Part of it is they just haven't had a G League team as well, so bringing those guys in on Exhibit 10s and cutting them and retaining their rights, pointless because they did not care about the draft or development at all. And they are changing that somewhat. So they've only got the 3 guys who are under the age of 23 at the moment on their roster. They do have two-way legend Jalen Bridges, who is like 23.4, but you're not counting him here. I am counting Ryan Dunn, who was picked in the first round, and my Bazemore Dynasty metrics, I'll spoil it now for all these guys, that it doesn't like any of them. Dunn's a top 275 player. He might be the worst offensive player in the NBA. He's 22. He's a 6'6". Like I said, power forward, but realistically, he's going to have to play a lot of center. In college, he averaged 8 points in 27 minutes. 8. Yeah, 1.3 steals for a 6'6" guy is pretty good. 2.3 blocks for a guy like that is an insane number. It is ridiculous. But 0.8 assists. 0.2 threes, 7 rebounds in college, 55 and 53. 53, that is not 3-point percentage, that is free throws. He cannot shoot threes. He cannot shoot free throws. He cannot shoot mid-ranges. He does not pass. He defends like an absolute madman, but is like Matisse Thybulle, but 100% worse on offense. And they already got a bad offensive player who defends, and that's Josh Okogie. Now, Dunn is, I think, going to be a much better defender than Okogie. But I would not be investing in Dunn in fantasy leagues. The blocks and steals could be awesome for category leagues, but at some point, that absolute just no offense whatsoever means that he's just not going to be out there. So I'm just not that interested. I'm probably a little bit more interested from a real-life playing perspective on the big fella, Osa Ighodaro. His Bazemore number doesn't come out as good, mainly because we have to use things like where they were drafted as part of that formula, and he was drafted lower. So he comes out as a top 300 player, but Ighodaro is a smallish 6'10" center from Marquette, but a guy that can pass. 3 assists in college, 1.3 steals, 1.1 steals, 1.3 blocks, 58% from the field. He doesn't shoot threes. He's 22. He played 33 minutes a night. But he's a nice... I tell you, I'll chuck a quick look at the fantasy similarities for Ighodaro and see who comes up. But I think he's like almost like a Onyeka Okongwu-ish type of player. Let's see what the thing comes out and who it comes up with. No, I didn't bring him up. Oh, Jock Landau. That's an interesting comp, actually. Zeke Naji, KJ Martin, Jock Landau, Dom Barlow. That's also an interesting one in terms of the players that they compare to. So there you go. But Ighodaro, there's something there as a backup center who I think could easily overtake Mason Plumlee at some point. And the other guy who's on a two-way is Ty Washington, who was a Kentucky guard that did not work out. One of the very few. Maybe he does end up working out, but he's bounced around Houston, went to Atlanta, went to Milwaukee, and now he's on a two-way in Phoenix. I've got him only top 325. We've seen results, and it's been bad. I still got a little bit of faith, but it has fallen quite significantly for Ty. And yeah, I want it to work out. I thought he had intriguing skills coming out of Kentucky, and hopefully we're able to get a little bit more, but we haven't. So, take that for what you, whatever you will. I will also just use this quick opportunity to talk about Jalen Bridges, someone who I thought should have been drafted, but ended up as a two-way guy in Phoenix. He's an older college guy. He's 23, came out of Baylor, signed the two-way, which was by plan. He was deliberately told other teams, don't draft him, I'm going to Phoenix. He's played 32 minutes, but a low usage college player, which he really should have done more. And I think that's a scheme thing, but shot free throws well, over 2 threes a game, almost 6 rebounds, a steal, half a block. It's very, very, very possible that he becomes an easily better player than Josh Okogie, than Damian Lee, that works his way off that 2-way contract and is able to find a rotation role maybe later this season, but maybe next season. So I'd have a bit of value in Bridges, but he's also like a 2-way guy for this season. So let's take a look at the risk-reward guy, who is the top variance player. Best case, worst case is what we're talking about. And it's someone that we've spoken about already. I think you can probably guess that it is Bradley Beal. I've got a 75 spot difference between best case, worst case category league rankings. For points leagues, it's about close to 6 fantasy points, not including minutes variance, of course. So there is risk in that. And a lot of that is priced into the very low rank and ADP on Beal. So that's why I do like him again as a solid enough later pick. What about the guys on this team who are over the hill? We know that when you go past the age of 29, as a general rule, not an exclusive rule, but as a general rule, we start to see decline, and there are a lot of players on this team. Bradley Beal is 31. Kevin Durant is 36. Jusuf Nurkic is 32. 32? No, he's 30, actually. So my bad. Royce O'Neal is actually old. And Royce has had a very weird career the last couple of years. He went to Brooklyn and was like a 40% 2-point guy for no real reason whatsoever. Came to Phoenix, that fixed up. Has some passing ability at times. He's someone that people get excited about from a category league perspective, but they really shouldn't. He ended up averaging 8 and 5 with 2 threes a game and 3 assists in 25 minutes. But he's another reason why I'm not going to get excited about Tyus Jones, because he's useful to fit next to Booker, Beal, and Durant. He defends. He can hit spot-up threes. He's useful. Allen's useful. Jones is useful. That's what I mean when we talk about they're so shallow they have to play minutes. They're not. They're not as shallow as you think they are. And O'Neal, like, horrendous field goal percentage, horrendous free throws. But he's had moments in the past where he's been better than that. It's just, he's had just some weird ups and downs. There'll be times when we are interested somewhat in streaming him in, when the schedule makes sense, but not always. And then we get to the cockroach, Mason Plumlee, who is someone that just is an infuriating player to watch. He put up good numbers in that season in Charlotte, but of course that season in Charlotte, he put up the good numbers because they just gave him way too many minutes, not because he was great. Because he played too much. He's 35, Mason Plumlee. How is that possible? He played 15 minutes a night for the Clippers. He averaged 5 and 5. He doesn't block shots. He used to be a decent passer. He doesn't really do that anymore. His free throws at 71 have been a big improvement. He used to be putrid there. He's 57 from the field. He doesn't space the floor. I have no interest in Plumlee. He's a bad defender. I have no interest in Plumlee in any sort of fantasy situation. I don't think that he impacts guys like Nurkic at all. I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. Also, interestingly, Monte Morris, he's over the hill as well. Now, his last season was terrible. Back injury got to him? Absolutely. But is he another maybe risk for Tyus? Not really, but they play a very similar game. He's a short 6'2" point guard. He had 14 minutes a night, 16 usage, 5 points and 2 assists last season. The shooting was gone. And we saw Monte Morris start for the Washington Wizards a couple of seasons ago. And Monte didn't really do very much in that 28-minute-a-night role. And then he was followed by Tyus Jones, who didn't really do much in a 29-minute role. And now they join up to be the point guards of the Phoenix Suns. He's the most boring-ass player who's got no real ability to ramp up what he does. Monte, I think he might be cooked. And he does join into this group of being over the hill, and he is. All right, let's do a quick little roundup. Is there anyone that we haven't spoken about on this team that's worth talking about? Not really. Let's have a look. There's Josh Okogie. If anyone cares, you shouldn't. Mamadi Diakite, probably shouldn't care there either. So I think Booker is solid enough in the second round. Just don't go to 13. But worse in points leagues. Kevin Durant, worse in points leagues. I would not touch Kevin Durant in round 1. And honestly, I don't think we should be looking at him in the first half of round 2. If you wanted to take back end second round, I get it. But I'm also very worried about a lot of the things that Durant does well. High field goal percentage, high free throw percentage on high volume. That they both could lose out. And then you lose some assists as well. And I'm a little worried. Or he just completely improves everything that declined for 3 months last season. makes Tyus Jones sit in the corner and do nothing and get those assists back up, and he remains Kevin Durant. At some point, he won't be Kevin Durant. At some point, he won't. But I'm just not invested in him this season. I like Beal as a later pick. I like Nurkic as a later pick. I don't like Tyus Jones unless I'm talking outside top 120. I'm not drafting Allen or O'Neal or Plumlee or Morris or Ball or any of those guys. And I don't really have huge faith in guys like Dunn or Iguodaro. I do like Bridges, but it's a tough run to get there, I think, to provide the value that you would hope. The value that I would hope that you would provide to me right now is a thumb on the YouTube and a subscription and a comment, and let's get to 100K. Hopefully, maybe, never. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.